Today on the show, I have the great pleasure to welcome someone who wants to free people from big tech, thanks to open source, open standards, free software. Italo Vignoli from the Document Foundation LibreOffice. Ciao Italo, come stai?
Ciao Filippo, sto bene.
Thanks for taking some time for us. First, I'd like to know, what is the Document Foundation, LibreOffice?
The Document Foundation is a charitable foundation based in Germany. It has been founded by the founders of LibreOffice, a number of people coming from the OpenOffice project. When OpenOffice, at the risk of becoming not as open as the community wanted to have it open, we decided to fork it and create LibreOffice.
For our viewers, LibreOffice, it's like a competitor or something similar to Microsoft Office, right? Excel, PowerPoint.
Absolutely. It's a so-called open office suite, a suite of applications that allow people to produce different kinds of documents. The fork happened in 2010, so it's 15 years that the code has been renewed, renovated, as technical people would say, has been refactored in order to make it more compatible with current technology trends.
If I want to have a Microsoft Office kind of suite, can I just go somewhere online and download LibreOffice and start working? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. You can go to www.libreoffice.org and download LibreOffice for Windows, macOS, and Linux. We have versions for mobile and a version for the cloud developed by a company. We call it an ecosystem company, which means that it's a company that is contributing to the code of LibreOffice, but creating products with their brand name, which are based on the LibreOffice technology, which means they share the same engine, they share the same format, they share more or less the same look and feel. Of course, on a smartphone, you cannot have the same look and feel of PC. On the cloud, you go through the browser, so the look and feel is slightly different, but the product is basically the same. Compatibility is absolutely 100% because the documents are exactly the same. So this is something which is specific of the open source environment. You would not be able to have a Microsoft Office developed by a different company because the source code is not public. In open source, you can have the same product developed by a different company, of course, based on the same code, and the company, when they develop a new feature, they share it with the original product. This is the beauty of open source.
Can I download the code and adapt it myself, and I can rebrand it? Can I do this freely?
Yes, of course, there is a license to respect. We use the Mozilla public license, which is technically called weak copyleft. Copyleft is exactly the opposite of copyright, of course. So you can take the code, change it in a way that is compatible with the license, which means that you have to share it with the original source code. You can integrate it in a product, but if you develop software for the integration, you have to share this software that has been developed for the integration. You cannot share proprietary code because that is a different environment, but you have to share the code that is built on top of the LibreOffice source code with the original repository. The repository is a library of all the files that create the product. You have to share it, and others can take the code you have developed and build on that code as well. The open source environment is built on the concept that everyone has the right to contribute to the code, of course, to read the code, to study the code, but to contribute to the code, sharing contributions. This is very natural for people. So at the end of our conversation, each one of us will have probably some additional ideas that are come out of the conversation. This is exactly the concept of open source. You share the development with other people, and you enrich the product, and you enrich the other people in the process. This is the advantage of open source, is that you don't keep for yourself what you're doing, you share it, other people can take advantage, increase the value. The value is added by different people, not just by the employees of a single company.
So you also speak about open standards. Is LibreOffice compatible with Microsoft Office? Can I use Microsoft Office files in LibreOffice and vice versa?
Yes, the Microsoft Office files are proprietary. They are standard, but they are managed in a way that in reality they are proprietary. LibreOffice files, which are different from Microsoft Office files, are based on an open standard called Open Document Format. Microsoft Office format is called OpenOffice XML. XML is a language that has structured data inside. So what LibreOffice developers are doing, they are analyzing Microsoft Office format and they create export and import filters that can write the files exactly as Microsoft Office is writing and bring them into LibreOffice and, of course, converting them into the standard format. For instance, I'm a user of LibreOffice, of course, I'm a Linux user, but I live in an environment which is the public relation environment where the majority of people is using Microsoft Office format. So what I do is for security and privacy, I save all my documents in the LibreOffice format, and then I save a copy that I use for sharing with Microsoft Office users. The LibreOffice native format has distinct advantages. First is an open standard, which means that not only LibreOffice users, but all the users of software supporting ODF, Open Document Format, can open my file. And the format, being standard, is a lot more robust and secure than Microsoft Office formats because everything respects the standard. I don't want to be too technical, but in some cases I need to add some technical details. For instance, the LibreOffice module called Impress is the equivalent of PowerPoint. If I add an image, LibreOffice allows me only to use standard image format, which are JPEG or PNG. I cannot use proprietary format because that would not make my presentation open. So the elements of the presentation have to be standard. If I use a video, it has to be MP4. Cannot be a proprietary video format. Maybe someone could tell you, but that, the Avid format, for instance, is for pictures. It's a very high resolution. I don't want to force people to buy software to read my files. It's enough for them to have LibreOffice. This is why we insist on the openness of the files or using open standards. And of course, open standards are free as LibreOffice. You don't need to buy software. You don't need to upgrade your PC. For instance, last week was the end of Windows 10 support. So people that have Windows 10 on their PC, if they want to run a secure software in 6 months, they have to change their PC. Because Windows 10 will not be secure anymore. There will be vulnerabilities, there will be attacks from malware that will increase the chances that the PC is not secure. We don't want this to happen, so we make our software compatible with even old hardware because we don't want to force people to upgrade their PC. Of course, if you are a Windows 10 user and want to move to Windows 11 and you have a 10 years old PC, you probably have to change your PC.
But you have another solution, which you were saying is moving to another operating system, such as Linux, right?
We suggest to move to Linux. I often make presentations at events, and in some cases I bring with me a 21 years old laptop that would not support any version of Windows, but is working with the last version of Linux Mint and the last version of LibreOffice without issues. Of course, it's not as fast as my daily PC, but it's still workable. An old guy that just needs to write some letters, look at some videos, could easily use that 20 years old PC without any problem.
And Chief Technology Officer has one computer with Windows 10 and he installed Linux Ubuntu. He said with Windows, he had about 80% of the memory that was used. And he went down, I think, to less than 60% using Linux. So that was quite impressive.
The reason is that we don't sell products. Of course, we promote them. We don't have any interest in upgrading the system around us. Of course, at the end of the month, people that develop LibreOffice have to make money because we live in houses, eat, drink, and pay the electricity bill. But there are other ways of getting money. You can develop features for large organizations. There is a large organization moving to Linux and LibreOffice in northern Germany. Is the lender of Schleswig-Holstein. They are paying developers to bring features which are specific for their healthcare system, for their government system. And developers are paid to develop these features, which are open source. Open source means you don't have to pay for them, but they don't come out for free. You have to work to develop them. You have to study the code. You have to study the environment. So let's say that free software is free, but doesn't come for free or for magic. It's the work of people that are actually very competent developers.
And there's more and more people now doing this because
Absolutely.
I read that the Danish government is moving from Windows 10 to Linux. The French Defense Ministry and others also did the move.
Yes. In many cases, organizations that are using open source software are not known outside because we don't invoice for the software, so we don't know the name of our users. We don't have that kind of interest. Of course, we help organizations in migrating to LibreOffice or to Linux, and this is a job. I have been doing this for several years. I'm not doing it anymore. But there are other guys that are consulting with companies to move them to Linux and LibreOffice. They are training people, which is also an important part of the process.
Actually, on the training part, I was quite surprised because many years in Hong Kong, I had my first company. I chose to use OpenOffice. There was such a huge resistance from the team because they were used to the menu in Microsoft Office. It was free software. It did the job to edit text, to do the equivalent of Word, Excel, etc. But still the team said, we want Microsoft Office. So how do you fight this with your LibreOffice?
You touch a very important point. Migration is not a technical process. It's a psychological process. Most of the effort is made to reduce resistance to change through communication. You need to explain to people that the software, not because it's free, has no value. We have developed, based on our experience, a migration protocol. And the migration protocol, which is available on the website of the Document Foundation, there are 6 or 7 steps, and the technical migration is the 5th step, not the first.
Okay.
The first one is analysis, of course. You have to analyze the situation. You cannot tell people you will migrate in 3 months or 6 months if they have to migrate 100,000 desktops. The second one is communication. So before you start training people, you communicate with them and tell them the management has decided there is a project which at the end will allow us to save money and change some of our workflow for the better. We need your help during the process because we know which are the software, and the software is totally compatible, has advantages, and so on and so forth. But of course, it's slightly different from what you've used for the last 20 years. So if your first reaction is different, then the project will slow down. Your first reaction should be, I'm curious and I want to see how it fits into my daily schedule.
Change management is always a challenge, Italo. But I like you just touched on something important, the money aspect. Let's be very concrete. I have 10 to 20 employees. How much do I save by changing? Or do I save anything?
20 employees you are saving because you don't pay any license. I would say that on 20 employees with probably 1 day of training you solve the issue, because it's difficult that on 20 people you have developed a process which is too complicated. Usually on 20 people, if you have someone who is a financial expert, he will probably have developed some macros with Excel that need some work. But this is probably a single, because on 20 people, the majority will do clerical work. Clerical work is easy to migrate, provided you approach the issue of resistance to change. Of course, you cannot do what they did in the city of Freiburg in Germany, which is a very nice city and which I like very much. Very nice market every day in front of the cathedral. But then, and I knew the city before I knew what they did wrong by migrating to OpenOffice in that case. The Easter weekend in Germany is 4 days long because they don't work on Friday and they don't work on Monday as well. So what the city of Freiburg did was they greeted everyone saying Happy Easter to all the employees on the Thursday night. And on the Tuesday morning, everyone found OpenOffice installed on their PC and Microsoft Office uninstalled. No manual, no explanation, no nothing.
Oh, wow.
In Germany, piracy was at 2%. After 6 months, over 90% of the Freiburg employees had bought pirated copies of Microsoft Office for their PC to work. And of course, the migration failed miserably because it was managed exactly in the opposite way as it should.
From the technology point of view, it was probably from the IT department itself.
Because the product is perfect, but the problem is that individuals are not perfect.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Microsoft Office. There are other suites. So there's iWork suite, there are others. How would you compare Microsoft product? They have a capitalization of $1 trillion and LibreOffice.
If you make a technical comparison, and this was made by analysts, not by us, but by analysts. You know, the Gartners, the IDCs, they consult companies. Yes. So according to these companies, the number of features is the same for 95% of the features. So the difference is really, really, really minor. The number of features is comparable. We are over 6,000 features. I think it's, no one will be able to know all the features of that software. Maybe they get to know 80% of the feature of one of the applications because they use it intensively. But the more reasonable estimate is that people is using 20 to 30% of the features.
But if you're so similar to Microsoft Suite, I would say, couldn't they sue you for copying the software?
No, because it's written in a completely different way. So there's no reverse engineering. I'm telling you the extreme. StarWriter, who's the grandfather of LibreOffice, was released a couple of months before the first version of Microsoft Word for DOS. This was in the 80s, while Microsoft, of course, was the company that released the operating system for the IBM PC. Was not the first company to release a word processor. The first company to release a word processor was IBM with EasyWriter.
Lotus.
Yep. No, then you had WordPerfect. And then you had an American product called XYZ Writer. And then the fourth one was Microsoft Word. Okay. On the spreadsheet, you had VisiCalc.
Yes, I remember that one.
Developed by Dan Bricklin. Calc was the first one copied, including the bugs, by Lotus 123.
Oh, really?
And then it was copied, including the bugs, by Excel.
No, really?
Why I say including the bugs? Because there is a huge bug called the leap year bug, which is known since 78. So the VisiCalc was released in 78 for the Mac 2, PC at the time. And the leap year bug was already known, was found by, I don't remember his name, but was found by Technologies in the early 70s. The reference calendar is the Gregorian calendar. So the Gregorian calendar has some conditions, Every 4 years you have a leap year.
Oh, but that one.
Centuries are leap years only if they can divide by 400, which means that the year 2000 was a leap year, but the year 1900 was not a leap year, 2100 will not be a leap year, 2200 will not be a leap year, 2400 will be a leap year. I will not be there, so I don't mind. You probably won't be there either. So that will not be an issue for us. But the problem is that the spreadsheet had to start counting days from a date. And Dan Bricklin decided that this was January 1st, 1900. If you make the error of considering 1900 a leap year, you have a day that never existed in the spreadsheet. So Excel is not compatible with the Gregorian calendar. Actually, they count the dates as a progressive number from January 1st, 1900, which means that I was born on 1948, I think. I made a calculation of all my historical dates in Excel just to make a comparison. When I speak at a conference and there is a Microsoft employee, I always ask the Microsoft employee his birthday. And he usually tells me, I was born on August 12, 1954. And he tells me, I was born on December. No, I want to know the Excel date, not your date. You're a Microsoft employee. You must know my number is, and I check it. Many Microsoft employees ignore that Excel counts the date in that way.
You said there's one common issue for all these spreadsheets. Without getting too technical, what are some of the main complaints from users about Microsoft products? Are you better than Microsoft?
Okay, so let's compare the three different main applications, each one on a separate basis. Excel is by far the best Microsoft application. Apart from the leap year bug, is a very solid software. It should be compatible with the calendar because this would make things easier, especially if you need high precision on numbers. The problem is, and here we should enter into a very technical description, which I don't want to do. So the Excel is by far the best, and I would say that Calc for the average user compares extremely well.
Calc is a version to
LibreOffice version of Excel. If you tell me that you are a financial analyst and you work at the New York Stock Exchange, my answer would be keep using Excel.
Oh, what?
Because in that area, we know that we are not as good. But if you are not a financial analyst, Calc will be perfect for your needs. If you make presentations, PowerPoint and Impress, which is our presentation software, compare rather well, especially if you are a professional presenter. So someone that is preparing serious slides, not the slide with frills or bells and whistles that you see in people that is not used to speak in public and thinks that you are a dancer instead of a presenter when you are on stage. Disturb the attention of the audience. So if you are a serious presenter, we are on the same level. On the word processor, so Word and Writer, if you write a document of over 100 pages, then use Writer. Forget about Word. The format is a lot more robust. You will never lose a page because the format breaks somewhere. We have a far better structure. LibreOffice is based on the concept of styles. This means that once you have described the styles that you need, then you can write 2,000 pages using Title 1, Title 2, Title 3, end of page notes, end of chapter notes, end of document notes. Everything is already as its own place, and it's managed, I would say, almost automatically if you respect the styles. You create the styles and then you respect them. And Writer is not just better, it's one order of magnitude better.
A long time ago, I have to admit, just for this disclaimer, one of my first traineeships, I worked for Microsoft.
Not a problem.
But I'm a great fan of OpenOffice initially, and now I reopened LibreOffice. I downloaded it before the interview here, and I looked at it. I trust that it's stable. It does look a little bit old-fashioned. Am I being unfair here? What do you think?
No, but the fact is that LibreOffice offers 5 different user interfaces that you can choose. So the default one looks old-fashioned. But then you can have a ribbon style one that looks exactly like Microsoft Office, and you can have it in three different flavors.
Okay. But why don't you put the cool one by default instead of old-fashioned one?
We are discussing this. The problem is that we have a large number of loyal users that are used to the old interface. The next main version, February 26, we are discussing this. So when you open it the first time, there will be a kind of pop-up window that say, please choose the user interface that you like better. There will be a small window that will show the user interface. Yes, I agree with you. Looks old-fashioned if you consider Microsoft Office as the reference. But if you look at this in technical terms, you click a lot less with LibreOffice menus than with Microsoft Office menu ribbon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check this.
This is usability test done.
Okay.
Because most of the commands are available on the two bars on top or the sidebar on the right side. They are 1 or 2 clicks away. While with the ribbon, in some cases, they are 3, 4, 5 clicks away because Microsoft has been extremely good at promoting the ribbon as the new interface. The reality behind it is that while the previous menus were not backed by patents, the ribbon is backed by 33 patents, so no one can copy the ribbon, while people could copy the previous interface without being sued. So there is a reason behind the ribbon that Microsoft has been extremely good at making it like the user's paradise. But in software, nothing is the user's paradise unless the user is happy with it.
How many people do you actually use LibreOffice?
We don't sell. So we don't have invoices.
But you have the downloads, right?
Yes. So we have 1 million downloads per week on average.
Oh, wow. How has it been like this?
It's growing slowly because one of the funny things is that although LibreOffice is free and updating it, upgrading from version to version doesn't cost you a dime, people is not updating or not upgrading it. We still receive emails because I receive emails from people from user mailing lists. People says, "Oh, I have a LibreOffice version 5, which is actually 8 years ago, and someone has told me that I should update it." Yeah. For sure you should update it, but it's working. Yeah, of course it's working. It's not security updated, so the reason you have to update it is security more than features. We estimate, based on the visit to the update page, to have around 100 million unique users, which means people that are only using LibreOffice, and probably another 100 million of users that use LibreOffice and another Office suite. Because LibreOffice doesn't cost anything. For instance, LibreOffice has Draw, which is the drawing module that is missing in Microsoft Office. So there are users that want to design something that download LibreOffice and use only Draw. So they are LibreOffice users, but they use Microsoft Office for the other modules because of the habit of using it. I release a slide set every 3 months internally with some data. Since October 1, which is 12 years rolling, which means the next one will be January 1st, December 31. This is October 1st, September 30. In those 12 months, we had 450 million visits to the update page.
Okay,
so, which makes the 100 million users. But of course, there will be people that have updated 4 times, and people that maybe they visit 8 times, and people that visit 1 time. So, of course.
Okay, so we have about an idea of the users. One thing I was wondering, now you have AI able to create software.
Yeah.
Can't you just now write in some kind of wonderful AI models? You just say, hey, create a perfect Office suite for me, customized to my needs on the fly.
Our senior developers are saying that We are talking about software which is 7 million line of codes up and is not made by one single file of 7 million lines of code, but is made by thousands of files, some which are small libraries of just a few lines, which are tightly connected into a single software. AI would not be able to create such a monster from scratch unless you use all the computing power only for this task.
Because it has all the code available in repositories, but the computing power to recreate this would be a challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had to ask you that question. The next one I would have is, security. How do you make sure that you don't have any backdoors? I install LibreOffice and I have backdoors feeding to whatever government. Are you sure there is no backdoor in your system?
I think that 100% secure software does not exist in general terms. So the first advantage of open source is that you can look into the code. The number of eyes that are looking into LibreOffice code are for sure larger than the number of eyes looking into Microsoft Office code. This is a consequence of having the code in an open repository. Yeah. And this is the first advantage. But of course, your next question could be, yes, but these are not security specialists. Of course not. But we have security specialists using software commonly available to all software developers of two different kinds. Static code analyzer, and we use Coverity Scan, which is probably the most known, that is making a weekly scan of all the code and is communicating to our security people the issues that it finds. And of course, the static code analyzer will find the areas of the code where the code is not consistent, which may happen because we have different developers. So you may have different developers working at the same module and therefore having a slightly inconsistent way of developing or managing a function.
It's always like it's normal, yeah.
So this is the first one. And this, of course, finds all the static weaknesses. We are, and this is not by our numbers, but by Coverity Scan numbers, the large software with less static issues. If you think that we are over 7 million lines of code, the last scan, I think, was around 10 static issues, which is basically nothing.
How many developers do you have?
We can say that we have a core team of around 50 full-time developers working in different companies, plus a number of contributors of two different kinds. The first kind are people that contribute on a monthly basis. They may look at a bug, solve the bug, and then for a month they do nothing. And a number of people that are contributing randomly, which means they find a bug, they solve the bug, then they look at other software and they do not cover LibreOffice for maybe a couple of years, then they come back and do the same. So the number of developers, we have 50, then probably 75 to 100 of the monthly contributors, around 1,000 of the other ones, which are historical. So the number of their contribution is, of course, negligible if you look at the total. But in the history of the software, it's in the thousands. The number of Git, so the number of contribution to LibreOffice is in the region of 6,000 to 7,000 per year. So it's rather substantial. Okay. We are also using fuzzing software. That is software that stretches the software beyond its capabilities by inventing stuff that is would never probably happen if done by normal users. This software allows us to detect the largest number of vulnerabilities, which are one order of magnitude lower than Microsoft. One of the reasons being the format, which is a lot more robust, which means that it's almost impossible to inject a malware into an ODF document. I said almost 3 times because, of course, it has never happened so far. We keep the fingers like this. We hope that in the future never happens, but you can never say because, of course, malware experts are there to try to make this a false information in the future. So at the moment, our software is rather secure, at least as secure as Microsoft Office. If you take out Outlook, Outlook is an incredibly unsecure piece of software. It doesn't use a single standard protocol, even if the protocols are 50 years old. All the email protocols in Outlook have been reinvented by Microsoft. They are not recognized, they are not secure, which means they are not maintained by specialists. They're maintained by
That's
Microsoft.
what you're using Eudora, isn't that what you're doing?
Using Mozilla Thunderbird.
Okay. That's a good
Eudora
one too. Yeah.
was dead, unfortunately, because there were not enough customers and it was a paying software. It died around 2006, 2007, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you said you have a 55 core team. How big is the same thing at Microsoft or even Google? We haven't talked about Google solution yet.
Of course, you don't have official numbers. I think that is bigger because there is one reason. Having a larger number of users, Microsoft Office is attacked more than LibreOffice in terms of security. This doesn't mean that LibreOffice is not attacked, but for sure the number of attacks that Microsoft Office is exposed to is higher. Therefore, they need a number of people working to solve the issues when they receive the attacks. At the moment, we only have a couple of people looking at that. We hope not to be forced to increase that number of people, but you never know.
What is a typical attack on Microsoft Word, Excel, or on
injection of malware in their files? That is the biggest one. It's very easy. I wouldn't know how to do it, but the developers tell me that it's very easy because the structure of the files is very complicated. Therefore, if you inject some code, it will be extremely difficult for a parser. The parser is the piece of code that will interpret the file, for a parser to detect the bad code inside.
Another issue, actually, everybody sees your code. I would expect that through Microsoft Office, it's more hidden. Obviously, it's compiled, but the code, we all see it, so it's easier to attack.
We are talking about the source code that is impossible to change because there is a process for the contribution.
Yes.
So a young developer will never be able to contribute directly into the code. He will write a patch or a piece of code which has to be reviewed by at least a couple of senior people. So the code that gets into the LibreOffice will always be reviewed by a selected number of senior developers. So this is the source code. Of course, you have the compiled code.
Yes.
Compiled code, if you download LibreOffice from our repositories are, of course, controlled on a daily basis for malware. So if something happens to that code, something will detect immediately that the code has been changed. We cannot say the same for third-party repositories.
Fair enough.
Because there are repositories that ask us, we would like to make a repository of LibreOffice for downloads. And this is fair, of course, they can do it. If they ask, they will get the software from our repository, which means that they will get the software, the official one, and we ask them to do some checks on the software. This, for instance, happened to SourceForge. SourceForge, they have LibreOffice, but they guarantee that it's maintained properly.
They are big guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. Others are similar, they can do it. The suggestion is to download LibreOffice from our repository, not from third-party repositories. As I said before, the 100% perfect secure software does not exist, will never exist. No company, no software, independently from the number of developers and the number of hours put on the software, will be able to to create the perfect software. Artificial
Yeah.
intelligence will never do that because it misses the human brain capability of connecting the unconnectable, let's say it. So create connections between things which technically cannot be connected. This is the beauty of the human brain. When you say think outside the box, you make a connection between two things that technically are completely different, and the human brain can do that. The human brain of developers can do this. The artificial intelligence brain will never be able to do this.
On discussion,
But it's
that's
technically impossible. They should get out of the binary structure. This is when I discover, the 101010 stuff, that makes the personal computer extremely intelligent on one side, but extremely stupid on the other one. If you think about it, it's 1010, yes, but
no, yes.
How many times in your life you have a yes, no, but? And it's also in technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I can make you examples of the but that has sold a large number of computers or printers. It was a but, and a technology will say, but this would technically be impossible. Yes, but it works.
We spoke about Apple's solution, the iWork suite. What do you think about the Google Docs?
Google Docs is actually a good basic product. It's lacking a large number of features. If we are talking of a serious Office suite, Google Docs is in the lower part of the features. I don't think that Google has an interest in enriching the features over a certain threshold because it's not their main business. It's a nice addition to their environment, but it's good for students. The fact that people can look into documents, you don't know where the documents are. But let's say that if all the privacy and security topics were covered, Google Docs could be a good suite for students. As students do not need the entire capability of an Office suite. I'm absolutely convinced that students should start using software when they are in primary school and grow from that piece by piece.
Yeah.
In that sense, Google would be okay for a starting level.
And if we compare to Google Docs, can I take, for example, LibreOffice, and instead of installing it on my computer, can I install it on my server and then access it via the cloud, same as Google Docs? That's what to do that.
Yes. As I said, there is a product based on LibreOffice technology. It's called Collabora Office. It's an online version of LibreOffice. Of course, the difference is that Google gives you the entire environment. So they give you cloud space, they give you applications, because their business is basically to profile the user to sell advertising. We don't profile users at all. If you install LibreOffice on a server, that server needs a cloud software, because LibreOffice is not a cloud software, it's an Office suite, so needs the cloud software. Nextcloud is a very good example of this. Needs cloud security. So you need, again, the login, credential-based, two-factor authentication, whatever you need. And this is not built into LibreOffice. It's not built into Collabora as well. We work very well with Nextcloud because Nextcloud provides all these needs, but LibreOffice works with clouds of other providers. But you need a cloud provider, you need a security provider, because otherwise LibreOffice would will run Collabora Online will run without the security, but I would really suggest not to use such software without all the security in place, because your documents are your documents and they have to be your documents.
But the solution you mentioned, Collabora, would be an open source
if you don't have security,
thing?
your documents can become everyone documents in 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. And this Collabora, is that also open source?
It's open source based on AGPL. For some portions is AGPL, for others is MPL, like LibreOffice. This open source is not free in terms of money. You have to pay the license because you need some maintenance. While if you install LibreOffice on your PC, you do the maintenance. If you install the cloud version, you need someone that does the maintenance on an ongoing basis because security is important.
Could someone say, look, I have a cloud specialist, I do security. Could they download this Collabora modules on their servers and take care of the security?
Yeah, but they need the regular updates, which are also security updates of the code. So
Clear.
Having the security updates of the Collabora online code as a price. Just to explain the difference, if you have an old version of LibreOffice running on your PC, it's not 100% secure, but as long as you are careful as a user, you can say that probably 95% of the security is the user in that case. For a cloud software, the percentage is completely different. Even if the user is extremely careful, doesn't count for more than 50% of the security of a cloud software. The other 50% is the cloud. And therefore, you need really the last version of the software because all the security issues that there are on the code have to be solved. Otherwise, it would be exploited in minutes.
Clear. We have many clients who are insurance companies or companies in the financial sectors. They can be insurance brokers. And for them, privacy, they basically handle confidential data in many cases. So what kind of clouds do you see where we can make sure that they are independent, that they are not leaking data to different governments? Do you know of any cloud services where you can say, okay, this will really be confidential?
I think yes, in a sense that if you use Nextcloud, for instance, with an ISP that gives you enough warranties about the fact that the data are secured, you can be quite sure that all this is respected. If your cloud is exposed, it's the ISP that make the real difference. If the cloud is a public cloud, even if it's controlled by a company, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Google, that is not a secure cloud by definition, whatever the company tells you.
Do you have any names of clouds that you would say this could be more secure?
There are European ISPs. I don't have names. I can mention Aruba in Italy because I know them. Is an ISP. I use them. Their data servers are based in Italy, so the data are in Italy. That is where I have my personal cloud, if you want. Not the P-Cloud, which is my backup. But if I have to share documents...
It's a Swiss cloud solution, right?
That is a Dropbox, basically. Can also be scaled as a cloud solution, but using P-Cloud to install software, I don't think. Because they don't provide the services to install the software. They don't provide the services to run the software online. It's a different kind of cloud. Nextcloud is basically an open source Microsoft Azure. Of course, Nextcloud is not providing the ISP. I run Nextcloud on Aruba, which is Italian. I'm sure that there are ISPs in Switzerland and in France and in Germany that are similar to Aruba in Italy, which means they are national. Of course, you can access them from outside because they are on the internet, but the way they manage data is protected. The contract they have for the server installed there is a contract that says that the data are in a directory which is controlled by me, and I have to give my password to them if I want them to do activities in my directory. It's not that they can decide where my data are. My data are on a machine, which is a shared machine because I don't have that many data. But I don't think I can make names. If you want, the suggestion is never trust cloud providers which are too big. They can scale at any level, but I would be very suspicious about where the data are. The suspicion is that no one can look into the data.
Never trust cloud solutions are too big. Okay. We're coming now to the last question, Italo. What is the future of LibreOffice? What does it look like in 5 years?
Ha.
Ha.
It's difficult to say. We are talking about commodities, so having a vision for commodities is difficult. For sure, there will be integration with artificial intelligence where this makes sense. It will make sense to have an artificial intelligence that helps you in localizing documents in different languages, in putting together information as a background for some documents, but not having the artificial intelligence that writes your documents. Of course, AI can do the background search that takes hours or even weeks for an individual in a matter of minutes, but then the individual has to add his own value. So where it makes sense, for instance, having artificial intelligence that tells a number of presenters, this slide, please change it, split in 5 slides, there is too much text in it, or change the picture, this will be fantastic and will probably be integrated.
Do you have a specific AI?
We are looking at all of them at the moment. Of course, the advantage of LibreOffice is that we can add extensions. So we don't need to integrate AI in the main code. We can add extensions that use AI engines or LLM if you prefer, using the best one for each task. At the moment, it's difficult to say because for sure we have OpenAI that is investing a huge or even more than huge amount of money on the development, so they probably have an advantage at the moment in terms of, I would not say performances, but probably in the global advancement. So they have probably more training. They have different levels of their ChatGPT. They have the 5.0, which is more creative, 4.0, more consistent. But then you have Perplexity, which is probably more privacy-oriented. You have Gemini from Google that can help a lot, given the breadth of the Google search engine repository. So it's difficult to say today which one will be the one of choice. I think that open source gives us the luxury of connecting to what is needed without choosing a single commercial partner.
Or maybe I could just say, I choose my own LLM. I just say, okay, like in GPT-4All, I just click and say, I want that LLM, that one. The user could be able to basically say, that's the one I want to work with.
Of course, we have to develop the connectors. But once the connectors are available, they will be open source connectors, which doesn't mean that your LLM will be for free. But if you have an account there, you will be able to use that LLM. Security is another area where there will be advances because the malware industry is growing, unfortunately.
Fast.
I think we probably will have more options in the online versions, in the mobile version. Let's say maybe just a reader of documents and an editor of documents, because in some cases editing a document on a smartphone is a pain because of the interface. So maybe just a reader is enough. For sure, there will be improvements in the voice recognition area, but that is not related to us. I mean, we have all the pieces in place. If the voice recognition is improving, then the user will be able to drive LibreOffice with his voice, which in some cases is more a gimmick than a real need. We'll leverage the development in those areas as well. It's difficult because the number of features that we have is so large, then it's difficult to tell you. We don't have a specific weakness in terms of features. Yes, as I said, we are adding financial modules to our spreadsheet because that is an area where we are weaker. We are working to add some automation to the presentation software for some people that ask that kind of automation, putting together the pre-digesting graphic elements where you just add the names, but the software already gives
Yes.
you a look and feel. But it's niche developments, not a main development. I think the only main one is AI. But in that area, we should also prepare users to use AI in a better way.
Thank you very much. It was a great discussion, very interesting.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it and subscribe to our channel. Do you struggle to capture and share the knowledge of your experts? Contact us. We'll love to hear from you.